All right, I believe we are off and running.
Good.
Fran, welcome. Fran is a longtime member of the Photographers Forum, uh, a fine art photographer who's exhibited widely, I believe. One of the things we talk about a lot at our monthly meetings are inspiration, where we get inspiration for images, inspiration for our work. And one of those ways, of course, is with books. And Fran has an incredible photographic library. And today he has decided, or has agreed to, share some of the books that have influenced him. So, Fran, I will turn it over to you. Take it away.
Okay, thanks, Ray. I'm going to share my screen now, and I think you can see it, right?
I can see it.
Wonderful. Let me say, in terms of books, it was a little tough. Well, let me get my shameless plug out of the way. If anybody should be interested in looking at my work, I have a website at fpdphotos.me. Those are my initials, fpdphotos.me. End of shameless plug. So Ray calls this book talk, and I said that I would go over 5 of my favorite books, so actually 6. I got to say, I'm a former school teacher. I was a public high school teacher for many years, and so books mean a lot to me. And my wife works at an independent bookstore, so you can imagine that we have quite a few. So when it came to picking out books, I had to look through over 110 books, many of which are monographs, some of which are instructional, etc. And it was not easy. I looked at categories and whatever. And finally, I got down to who are the photographers who were most meaningful to me over the years that I keep going back to. And there are more than 5, but I isolated these. So we'll get started. Number 1, The Art of Photography by Bruce Barnbaum. Now, this book, the reason I'm recommending this book is because this guy has everything in his book. I mean, there's composition and there's visualization, light, color, filters, you name it, the zone system, contrast. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And a lot of it's about film, but that doesn't matter. The second edition may have more about digital, but there is not only information about the print, but the digital zone system, and an awful lot about Photoshop and working with it. But what I really like is he starts off talking about enthusiasm and his personal relationship with photography. The guy knows how to write, he knows how to teach, and if you want to know something, I think it's in this book. He talks about realism and abstraction, intuition, and personal philosophy. So I'm not going to show any images from the book, but I think you can see from the table of contents, there's a lot in this book, and it's still available. I have the first edition, and the second edition, I think, is what's on sale now. So if you've never seen this guy, he does good work.
Oh yeah, beautiful work.
Book.
In fact, yeah, I have this book as well, and one of the things I really like about it is that it's instructional without being like taught to. Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of photography books that try and teach you things sort of make it's like being in a class, but what the beauty of this book is it really gives you the sense of what it is, how to create a photograph, what makes a good photograph. It's not all f-stops and all those other things.
Right. He's technical.
Book.
He certainly is technically knowledgeable, and it's in here. But I think you're exactly right. There's much more communication between the photographer and the writer on a level that's human than technical. Yeah. So that's my first book that I recommend.
Yeah, terrific book.
Number 2, a little small book, and I have it here somewhere. But this is how small it is, guys. Let me grab it. It's a little book. And it's not just for photographers, but it's delightful, absolutely delightful. He says a lot of obvious things, but he also mentions things that we all need to be reminded of. He says, don't wait until you think you're an artist before trying to be one. And get busy, do your work. Procrastination being bad, working even though you don't know if you know what you're doing is good. There's a lot of good stuff in here that's just fun and enjoyable and quick. And they're in small little bits like how to look at the world like an artist. And he tells you, steal ideas. A a lot of photographers, there are two groups of photographers I hear often where one says, oh, I'm not going to copy anybody. I want to be myself. And then the other ones that say, I really want to be like. And the truth is, we all copy, we all steal, but if you learn from it and then move on to find your own vision, that's what's good about copying or stealing. So I highly recommend this book. He says nothing's original. And if you keep that in mind, then just keep working and work towards what you see as your spin on it, your view, your vision, your aesthetic. But there's nothing wrong with looking to the masters or your friends and trying to learn from what they do. Don't try to be them, but learn from them so that you can become your own original self. He says, make things and know thyself. Be ready, get started, and go for it. So I really like this little book. Every once in a while, I open it up, look at a page, and go, oh, yeah, that's right.
Sometimes it's good to remind yourself of these little things. It's, you know, but sometimes you need to be reminded.
Absolutely, I certainly
do.
do.
It's just a terrific little book. I have this one as well.
There you go. That's why we have them. Fake it till you make it. Mm-hmm. Number 3, Robert Frank. When I was a young man, I came across the Americans, and it truly touched me. And I didn't know anything about street photography or documentary photography or reportage photography, but I looked into this. I read the introduction by Jack Kerouac, and this is kind of one of my Bibles. Now, people who know my work realize that I like to shoot a lot on the street. I'm not a nature photographer. I'm not a landscape photographer. I've done a little bit of both. I prefer people, the street, the action of the urban environment. And what this guy did was, he was an immigrant. And here he is in the early 60s looking at America as his new home and a place that he wants to find, if not utopia, a better life, a wonderful life. And he went across the United States, and what he did was a heresy. The book came out and it was hated because he did an unvarnished look at America. He didn't want to look at America making it a pretty, fantastic Norman Rockwell America. He wanted people to see what he saw as a grittier, more impactful America that was really out there. He was called anti-American. He was considered to be doing something that was wrong. There were bookstores that didn't want to have his book. And now, of course, we know that it's iconic because he changed photography. Robert Frank is the one who should be given credit for taking, let's say, Henri Cartier-Bresson's formalism, which came from painting, and turning it into this streetwise kind of, as I said, unvarnished look at what's going on in the street. And today, we know it's a great book, but at the time, people wanted to disown it. It was criticized heavily.
Wasn't it published in France first?
Yes.
Before
yes,
in the U.S.? Yeah.
Came out in France, and the French version was anti-American. It was looking at the negative aspects of the United States. But he didn't really intend it to be negative so much as revealing, you know? Mm-hmm. By the way, this shot really impresses me because I took a photograph in New York City of a car covered like this, but obviously in New York City, so there were no palm trees. And I did it before I saw this book. And so it made me laugh. Maybe I felt that kinship with Robert Frank as a result. I don't know. This is a famous shot of his. Mm-hmm. There are many in here that are famous. And he ends the book with this one, and he purposely did that. He said that when he put the book together for the American version, he wanted it to be kind of a poetic journey. So they're not necessarily sequenced by when he took them. And he ends it with this picture. And I love this picture. I love this picture. I think it says a lot, perhaps even today. Mm-hmm. Number 4 out of 5. Arbus, Friedlander, and Wintergren. New Documents 1967. To me, this book follows perfectly from Robert Frank, because Robert Frank created this genre of going out and shooting the personal. You know, he wasn't being formal. Instead, he was injecting his personal view, his personal self into what he was looking at, what he was recording, what he was presenting. So at the Museum of Modern Art, John Sarkowski decided to have this exhibit of 3 relatively unknown American photographers, D.N. Arbus, Gary Winogrand, and Lee Friedlander. And it's ironic because you look at this book now and people have to remember that it was an exhibit. It didn't even have a catalog. And when people went to this exhibit, and these are pictures at the exhibit, when people went to this exhibit, they were just pictures pinned up on the wall at the Museum of Modern Art. You know, today we who exhibit, we mat them and we frame them and we make them beautiful pieces of art. But this work by these 3 great American photographers were literally just printed and then put up on the wall. It's just amazing. I wish I had seen this exhibit in 1967. Unfortunately, in 1967, it was the year before I got my first camera. Deanne Arbus, if you don't know her work, she's still one of my great, influences. I love her work, everything about her. Grab books by her, but she was one of the 3 in this exhibit. She often photographed people who were, I don't want to say dispossessed down and out, but people who weren't normally seen by American culture.
People on the margins.
People on the margins. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's the way it should be said.
Yeah.
And Lee Friedlander, he had a lot of humor, but also commentary about America in his work. I really love that guy. This is called Graduation, you know, and you're looking from the view of the photographer, but you're looking from the view of the person who's in front of those 3 graduates, perhaps a parent, taking a picture. A guy who's not looked at very much today, Lee Friedlander. I know very few photographers who know his name, but he's worth looking at. And Gary Winogrand, one of the greats of street photography. In fact, when Gary Winogrand died far too young, I believe in his 50s, he left something like 10,000 negatives undeveloped, rolls and rolls of film, because to him, photography was shooting. It wasn't about printing. It wasn't about exhibiting. It was about going out and shooting. It was his personal experience. I love his work. You get a chance, take a look at them. The one on the right here is perhaps one of his most iconic images, taken, I'm looking here, taken in Central Park. Just a wonderful, I mean, he took pictures on angles and he changed street photography itself by making it even more informal, more personal, and just a wonderful work to look at. There's the shot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like they posed for him, you know, but they weren't.
I think, and I could be misquoting the quote, but I think it was Gary Winogrand that said that he photographed so he could see what the world looked like photographed.
That's right. That's exactly the quote.
He didn't,
right.
didn't care about the print that he just photographed. And
that's right. It's like
so he could see the world.
Looked through like a viewfinder, and he wanted to see what the world looked like. Look, shooting photographs. I love the guy. Number 5, Joel Meyerowitz.
Oh yeah.
Joel is still with us, and he's got plenty of books to look at, including Cape Light, which was my first one of his. This one, I think, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, I picked up. It's relatively new. He's got a new one out now, a newer one out now, but this one is huge. And what I like about it is that he breaks it into components. On the left, you see here, he calls it classical. On the right, it's jazz, because he starts from today. This is his newer work. This is his older work. So instead of going, chronological, he does chronological backwards. This classical work is done with a viewfinder. I mean, a view camera, a large format view camera. The jazz is his older 35 millimeter work. And he talks in the book about all of these images. He talks about his love of color, because he loved color in the very beginning. He was shooting in black and white like anyone else, but he loved color, but couldn't shoot in color that much because at the time there weren't good processes for doing your own printing of color. A lot of it was Kodachrome, and Ansel Adams didn't want to shoot color for that same reason. He said, I can't make a print or a book that will show the value and the beauty of what I've got in my original source. So it wasn't until that occurred that guys like, and women like Meyerowitz switched over to color, but he always wanted to shoot in color. And chapter 3, where he shows his images on cities from 76 to 2008, you can see this beautiful color work he did. And you know what they say, if it's not about the color, shoot in black and white. Well, when he shoots in color, it's about the color. And this series is I keep saying viewfinder, view camera of still lifes that he's been doing. Beautiful things that he shoots as still lifes. So he starts in the book from today and works his way backward. And when he works his way backward, he's got plenty of black and white of his street shooting and his travels around the United States. Great stuff. And I talked to somebody recently about some of this work, and they said, well, you know, I see this stuff every day today. And I say, yeah, but these are the guys who started it, you know? They're the source. They're the origin. Whereas today, a lot of people try to copy them, shoot like them, or shoot like them unknowingly. But these are the people who really, really started it all for us. I love this shot in London. It's just great. I mean, you can't beat that. But as I said, he switched over to color when he could. A famous shot of his where he saw this guy just fall down and lie down, and people looked at him, but nobody helped him. This was in Paris. These things I thought only happened in New York. And he's got nice layouts where he's got a black and white and a color. They're not just pictures. He's got a lot of text where he discusses his work, how he came to enjoy his work, why he does color, why he fills the frame with so many things. He says, I don't want a picture of just the person there when I'm shooting in the city. I want the whole context. I want people to see everything that was going on that is part of what I'm shooting. And again, his colors, he's just beautiful what he does.
Yeah, he's a master at color.
He is a master of color. And he's still with us. You can still do workshops with him. You can see him online. He's just marvelous. Some of his Florida pictures are outrageous. Terrific shots to give you a sense and a feel for place. It's a large book, as you can see, with really beautiful plates. I love this book. I can open this book any day and get motivated, including his portraits. He also did a series on the World Trade Center, the aftermath of 9/11. As the story goes, he was in Massachusetts, I think on the Cape when it happened. And he knew he immediately had to get back to New York. So he and his wife, Maggie, were going to head back. But for about 5 days, they didn't let anybody in or out of the city. So he had to wait. But once he got there, he went down and he had his camera with him. He raised his Leica up to take a picture, and a cop came over and said, no photographs. You can't take photographs. This is a crime scene. And he pushed back and he says, oh, no, this is a public place. I can take photographs here. I'm an American. I have the right to. And she kept pushing back and he kept pushing back. Well, he did a whole series of pictures anyway, and he got them. And they're stunning. They're stunning and frightening and beautifully done. And here's the bonus, number 6. Sally Mann.
Oh, man, yeah.
Now, I didn't do this book, but I put it up here because this is the one that made her infamous. If you don't know Sally Mann, a lot of her work was of her children. And she lives in Virginia, and her family means everything to her. So she photographed her children for this book called Immediate Family. And prior to this book, she had one called At 12, which was about adolescence. Wonderful photographs of girls at 12 or so. And she thought it would be successful just like that one, but this one became notorious because some of the plates were of her children in the nude. So you know how it goes. Puritan American critics wanted to ban the book. She got a lot of bad press. And, you know, they were calling it pornography, which I think is an insult to the artist and her family. Her kids were fine with it. Her family was fine with it. Her husband was. But it created an impression on people that this is what she did, which is nonsensical. So I recommend this book, but this is the book that's number 6. Her memoir.
There we go.
This book is phenomenal. It was nominated for a National Book Award, was one of the finalists for the National Book Award, and won a Carnegie Mellon Award for, I forget what now, I forget the name. But she's won awards with this book because she's an amazing writer. So here's a woman who's not just a really incredibly well-known and talented photographer. I think Time Magazine called her the greatest living photographer at one point. But she's also a marvelous writer. She's intelligent, well-read, and as I said, a beautiful writer and a beautiful photographer. Beautiful work with her children. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, sorry. I was going to say, I'm glad you mentioned her autobiography because it is a tremendous book, terrific book.
Absolutely.
I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, read it. So she's got these pictures of her children. But, the more you look at them, you realize these aren't just snapshots. These are beautiful photographs of her family. And I think this one is from At 12, where she chronicled 12-year-old girls in adolescence. Just beautiful work. And this is another one with her dad. As I said, she lives in Virginia. Most of her work is shot in the South. She stays close to home. Mm-hmm. She also does incredible landscapes of the South. This is one of my favorite photographs of hers. She shoots with film. She shoots with large format. And the work is just phenomenal. She does landscapes from North Carolina, Georgia, other places. She's been to Louisiana, but she loves the South. And so this is what she photographs. But you can see they're so emotional. They're so deep, I can look at them forever. They're stunning and they're mesmerizing and they're, I'm trying to grasp a word that I should have written down. I don't want to say mystical. It sounds a little bit overboard, but the work has depth to it that just motivate. Now, I don't shoot anything like this, but she makes me want to go out and use my camera. That's for sure. This is from her Civil War Battlefield series, which is a great series also, as is this one. And you can see the mood that she can create with her work. She breaks all the rules too, which I love. I want to show one of these images. This is from a series where she shot a body farm. I don't know if anybody knows about body farms, but this is where scientists have dead bodies and they are literally studying them, how they decompose, et cetera, et cetera. And so she went and got permission, first person ever, to photograph the body field. And she chronicles all of this stuff, all of these shots that I'm showing and more in her book, including these, which are photographs of her husband. He's living through a debilitating disease, which will kill him. And she chronicled it with these amazing photographs. So I encourage people to look at Sally Mann's work and certainly read that memoir. If you don't want to read the memoir, buy one of her monographs. These are her children also in a more recent, I saw this exhibit in Washington, D.C. of faces. And she had her kids lie down literally lie down on a table with the view camera over their heads. And she photographed their faces. So these are her daughters grown up, or older anyway. And there's never anything, there's never anything that's not artistic about her. By the way, if you don't like to read, there's a wonderful DVD. This film about her called What Remains, The Life and Work of Sally Mann, is available and is a really, really fine DVD. And with that, I'll end it there.
All right, Fran, thanks so much for sharing the terrific books. And you've shown me two that I hadn't bought, but now I think I have to. So making more room on my shelf for sure, but excellent selections. And actually, to Sally Mann, she was actually an English major in college,
That's right.
I believe.
Yes,
So she wanted to be a writer when she was younger. But photography was something she got from her dad. Her dad was a very keen amateur photographer. And,
that's right. It's all in the book. It's all in the
right, all in the books. If you want to
Hey,
know more, buy the book.
a quick story about Sally Mann, if I might.
Sure.
I love this woman. I always joke with my wife. I say, Trish, if you weren't in my life, I would chase down Sally Mann. She is so smart. She's a great artist. Forgive me for sounding sexist, but she's beautiful. Oh, she's got the whole package. But here's the funny thing. I've met her. And once I met her right here in Raleigh when she came to talk at Meredith, sponsored by Quail Ridge Books, another shameless plug. And when I met her, I brought all my Sally Mann books. I had 6 or 7 of them. And she was amazed, and she signed every one of them. But one that I showed her, if you'll bear with me, I'll grab it, isn't a book. It was the catalog from a show in Durham.
Oh wow!
I'm trying to show it. I have trouble.
That's it. Yeah.
You know, it's there, but it's the small catalog of a show in Durham that my friend Ruth Pinnell put together, and it was my first real view of her work, which so impressed me. She looked at that and she said, "Oh my gosh, I've never seen one of these." So I was afraid she was going to ask for it, but she didn't. She just signed it away, and she was great. So I encourage people to look at her work, read her memoir. She's a great photographer.
Absolutely. Well, Fran, thank you again so much for sharing. I think we've enjoyed this so much. We may try to do it again if you're up for it someday.
Another 5 books.
No, there we go. Well, you said you have 100 something, right?
I have over 100. Yeah.
So we have 20 more of these we can do.
Well, thanks a lot for letting me do this, Ray. It was
Absolutely,
a lot of fun, and I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you.
You bet.